Hello everyone, this is Shining Noctowls, and tonight I figured it'd be nice to share another podcast with you guys. This podcast is going to be mainly sharing with you guys some of my ancestry. I figured it'd be neat to share because I know some people enjoy these kind of videos, and I just think it's neat to share. It's kind of a way you can learn about different cultures and one's own history. And I think it's kind of nice to be able to share that at times, indeed, to share the rainbow. And so, yeah, let's get started here. I'm going to be toggling back and forth. Maybe I can, gonna see, yeah, that should be fine. Just want to make sure I can read your guys' comments if anyone decides to tune into the stream. Let me see if you guys can see this all right. Yeah, it seems like you guys can. Just want to get the perfect fit. Give me a second. Just one of my alarms going off. All right. Let me see here. All right. So let's go um to our ancient populations. So at least from what I gathered from this website, is that I am connected to the Aurelians, and the Aurelians actually may have been the Meletians that they is spoken about in Irish mythology or Irish folklore. And over time they had mixed with the Celts that had come from the north, and they had uh, they had fought at first, but then they eventually came together. I'm gonna see if I can kind of summarize some of what is written here. Um, so according to the Romans, the Aurelians were tall, well built, and wore bronze torques. And torques are an important part of Celtic culture, including uh, it's kind of seen as like a symbol of wealth. And what usually pops up to my mind when I think of the Celtic torque is I think of Cernunnos. And I'm not sure if Cernunnos was seen with a bronze torque. I'd have to check honestly. Cernunnos is a Celtic god, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know. Um, I would have to see bronze torque. Uh, bronze torques in Celtic society. In ancient Celtic cultures, torques were common form jewelry and were made from bronze, copper, silver, and gold. Torques were, yeah, yeah, and identified the wearer status and spiritual properties. That makes sense. Yeah. So I am pretty sure that the Celts and the Aurelians were probably really related to each other actually. So because there's already that connection right there as a source. It says the Romans over and yeah, because the Romans and the Aurelians would fight often with each other. Um, the Roman Republic subdued the Aurelians, Aurelian revolt. Um, yeah, but I have a feeling that the Aurelians were probably the Meletians, or may have been some of the Meletians that had sailed from Greece to Spain and then up north to Ireland. And they may have even have gone through Egypt before they came to Spain and eventually went north and contested with the two of the Danan. Yeah, that's kind of my because the Milesians are known as what we know today as the Celtic and Gaelic people today of, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, but also other Celtic Gaelic people, and in Spain and other areas, Iberia really, and there was probably that connection uh, back in the from the Aurelians. And I'm surprised more people haven't talked about it because I know I've watched this Irish professor named Pat Flannery, and he talked a little bit about the Milesians or the Irish being connected to the Milesians and back to ancient Greece. But he never really talked too much about the Aurelians, which I think is a shame because I think there are a lot of connections actually with the Aurelians and the Gaels, and also with the Greeks as well. And I know some Greeks say that the Aurelians and the uh, and uh, the Aurelians and the Greeks or the Hellenic people were not related, but I actually think they were. I think that the Aurelians may have actually been descended from ancient Greeks or ancient Hellenic people potentially, or there may have been a mixture of these two groups coming together. And at least there definitely was probably with the Celts and Aurelians, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was with the Greeks, or really if they were already people of ancient Greek origin that had migrated north from the Aegean Sea or closer to the Aegean Sea. Um, it's interesting to think about. The next group I'm related to, it talks about the Thuringi. To me, the Thuringi sounds like Thor, and to me, it kind of sounds like that maybe this tribe of people, from what I've read, they came out of mainly England stock, or mainly from southern Denmark. They could even come from further north, but they sound like they could have been the descendants of Thor, and Thor is a Norse god. And I can already see Bjorn, a YouTuber I watch from Norway, kind of chuckling a wee bit. Um, but anyways, it says here the Thuringi were a Germanic tribe that appeared during the late migration period in central Germania. It became a kingdom which came to conflict with the Merovingian Franks and was eventually conquered by the Franks. They rebelled further, and parts of Thuringia came under Saxon rule as a result. Yeah, those those Saxons, I've been learning to heal with them though. The Thuringia are thought to be the descendants of the Herman Dury tribe. Oh, well, I actually have an uncle named Herman, so it kind of fits. Based on the Elbe River in ancient times. They established an empire in the 5th century and were known for taking Hunnic women, so they would capture. Yeah, and this is something that a lot of Norse people and even like Bjorn, who says that, for example, the Vikings did some things they weren't always proud of, and some of those things were slaves taking slaves and pillaging innocent villages, and it is something that he's wanted to heal with. And I think that's a good thing because we all make mistakes, but we all learn to heal as well. And even there was a time where even some of the ancient Irish raided and had slaves themselves for a time. And again, that also changed too. But I think the important thing to remember is that there was a reason why the ancient Irish were also connected to the ancient Egyptians, or back to ancient Egypt, as well as even apparently some of the Saxons. At least from what I read, there was a Saxon king who told his people one time, "Do not look down on other people, for you were once looked down upon in Egypt." And I think that is important to recognize. And when I think about Egypt and breaking away from slavery, I always think about my spiritual mother, Morrigan, an Irish goddess or part of the Tuatha De Danann, and she says, "Bow down to no one," and that is a very powerful message that I think we can all learn from. And even Bjorn, a proud Norse Viking heathen, has also come to the kind of conclusion to not be a slave and to be strong and be your authentic free self, or self-sovereign self, which is also kind of a big thing in Celtic folklore or paganism as well. It says here there's also evidence in the graves showing Thuringies sought marriages with Ostrogoth and Lombard women. So the Ostrogoths were from, I have to check where they're from. A member of the eastern branch of the Goths, conquered Italy. But where were they? Where were they originally from? Origin. Uh, Probably originated around the area of. I'm gonna probably butcher this. Is it Gondesk, Poland? Gondesk, Poland. Before they began migrating to the regions of modern-day Germany and Hungary or Hungary. So they may have originally been Polish, potentially. But and that's interesting because I've always seen a strong connection, particularly from, especially during the recent events in Ukraine. I've seen a strong solidarity between some of the Spanish and some of the Ukrainians. And I'm wondering if it goes back to the origins of the Visigoths and Ostrogoths, because there were a lot of Visigoths who came to Spain long ago. It says the Visigoths emerged from the Gothic tribes, probably a derivative name for the Gutenes, a people believed to have their origins in Scandinavia and who migrated southeastwards into Eastern Europe. Interesting. So it could be that these could have been Scandinavian people who went to areas of modern day Ukraine and then went headed west to Spain, which is interesting to think about. And it would only further kind of really exemplify this solidarity that I've seen between um, some of the people of Spain or Spania and also some Ukrainians as well, which I think is interesting. Um, let me look here. So then we're going to go, funnily enough, to Roman Hispania. So here it says, let me check. The Lusitania and Celtic Iberians who lived in western Iberia resisted Roman attempts to pacify them until 61 BC when Julius Caesar arrived on the scene. The final conquest of Hispania was accompanied under Augustus between the year 39 and 19 BC. In 13 BCE, Hispania was divided into three provinces, Baetica, Lusitania, and Tarraconensis. Hispania was significantly Romanized throughout the imperial period, and it came to be one of the most important territories of the Roman Empire. Emperors Trajan and Hadrian were both born there. Oh, I didn't know that. And most all of the people of Hispania were granted Roman citizenship. So Trajan and Hadrian were originally born in Iberia. Interesting. I did not know that. I know there was also Maximus Magnus, who was also born in Spain, but he's actually known as kind of like a hero in Wales, and he actually rebelled against the corruption of the Roman Empire in Constantinople, and actually had a kind of a rebellion of, or a kind of a rebellion formation, or rebels of comprised of Celts, Bretons, and other groups of people who actually wanted to fight back against the corruption of Roman rule, of Constantinople at least, because there were good Romans out there, but I think really one of the best not only for what they believed to be the empire in their eyes, but really for the people around them, because even if they were part of the empire, there were some like Hermann Siegfried, who once served in the Roman Empire, who actually rebelled against Caesar because he wanted to protect his, the land, the land and the people that Caesar wanted to conquer. So even though he was named Arminius, or given the name Arminius in the Roman army, he still, held a deep heart for his people, uh, or Germanic people, which is important to recognize. But let's continue. Hispania finally fell from the Roman Empire with the great Germanic migrations of the 4th and 5th centuries AD. Alani, Suevi, Vandals, and Visigoths poured through Gaul and into the west. effectively removing Hispania from Roman control by about 409 AD. So yeah, so there would have been Germanic and Scandinavian tribes really who came to Spain and almost liberated it from Roman control, uh, in a sense. Hispania's economy expanded greatly under Roman rule. The province, along with North Africa, served as a granary for the Roman market, and its harbors exported gold, wool, olive oil, and wine. Agricultural production increased with the introduction of irrigation products, some of which remain in use even today. Interesting. So that's it about the Roman Hispania, or really Iberia, part of the history. I was going to look anything else about the Aurelians. Um, the Romans had fled the Greeks from the enemies of all mankind. Piracy that had made the Adriatic unsafe for Italian commerce. There were three campaigns. The first against Tuata. It sounds like Tua de Danann. Tuata means queen. Yeah, I guess I think is it in the Aurelian? I'm gonna check meaning. Yeah, it means an Aurelian word for Tuata. But I really believe that the Aurelians were probably ancient Greeks from long ago, and they may have been somehow ostracized or kind of they moved north in north of what was known as Hellas or as Greece at the time, and there might have been conflict between the ancient Greeks who had moved north and the Greeks later on who still stayed in Greece who had probably developed in a different direction over time, and so it was really probably more of a conflict between ancient Greek descendants and then of course other Greek descendants who had decided to stay in the political mindset as Greece progressed, which is interesting to think about. But I really feel like they both have probably a similar or even same origin in some extents. Um, Second against Demetrius of Pharos, and third against Genitus. So Demetrius of Pharos. I've heard about the word Pharos before, especially from a game I played called Final Fantasy XIV. Demetrius of Pharos. Uh, oh, so he was a client king on behalf of the Romans. Interesting. Initial campaign into marks the first time that the Roman navy crossed the Adriatic Sea to launch an invasion. The Roman Republic subdued the Aurelians during the 2nd century BC. Oh yeah, and then I read that part. Yeah, I just wanted to share more of that because that was kind of interesting. Now we're going to go to the Gallo-Romans. The Gallo-Romans describes the Romanized culture of Gaul under the rule of the Roman Empire. This is characterized by the Gaulish adoption of Roman morals and way of life in a uniquely Gaulish context. It was a melding of cultures, parallel developments of Romanization. Interpreted Romana offered Roman names for Gaulish deities such as the smith god Gambinus, but of Celtic deities only the horse patroness Epona penetrated Romanized cultures beyond the confines of Gaul. Yeah, no, this makes sense because even from the Irish pagan, even from the Irish pagan school that I watch on YouTube, there is a man named John O'Sullivan that will say there are times where the Romans would give the names of pagan deities, the deities of their own gods, which really came from the Greeks. Like they would try to name, I think, a Celtic god named Tyrannus. They would try to name him, I think, Jupiter, or and it'd go back to Zeus, or um, And I think that was more so really just a way for the Romans to kind of really, since they were kind of conquering all these other places, they wanted to kind of convert the other peoples to their kind of belief system, I'd imagine. Now, if it was probably the ancient Greeks, they might have had a bit of a different image of this. I think for the ancient Greeks and the Celts and Aurelians, we do have a shared ancestry, but I think um, we would probably really respect that we have our own mythology, but there are interconnections, which I think should be something that should be actually examined. But I think the way sometimes how some of the Romans would go about it was unhealthy because when you try to force a belief system on others, you have to be careful of that. And of course, not all the Romans were like that, and that's why there were a lot of Romans who actually rebelled against some parts of the empire because they really wanted there to be a healing unity of people coming together rather than people just kind of fighting each other or just trying to force their ideas on each other, which I think is interesting indeed. Um, I think my one of my friends named Ben mentioned that I think in the Roman Senate there was a lot of people who kind of glorified that the Roman Senate was like a very orderly and very well conducted kind of a place, but really a lot of the senators would kind of constantly argue with each other because they really had trouble trying to agree on things. Uh, and one of them could even be, the idea of the Romanization of different deities throughout the pagan world. Um, but moving on, it says here the barbarian invasions beginning in the early 5th century forced upon Gallo-Roman culture fundamentally brought fundamental changes in politics and the economic underpinning. Gothic settlement of 1418 offered a double loyalty as Western Roman authority disintegrated at Rome. Yeah, that makes sense. I'd have to see what the word double loyalty means. Um, or let me look. Dual loyalty, maybe. That's what they're trying to say. Dual loyalty is loyalty to two separate interests that potentially conflict with each other, leading to a conflict of interest. Interesting. So there could have been a bit of upheaval there. Um, and then we go to the Romans, which this lifetime, surprise, surprise, I am connected to them now. We were once enemies, you know, but at the same time, just like with the English, I've been learning to heal with the Romans as well. And if there's one thing I can say that the Romans were good at, despite the food that I kind of mentioned that Italians are well known for being pasta, pizza, and there's another dish called gnocchi, which is actually a dish of these very kind of small potatoes, or I think it's, or no, well, actually dumplings. Interesting. I thought they were potatoes, but they're actually dumplings. They're very good indeed, actually. I had it once at a Italian restaurant, and it was kind of just like this, where they put like basil and cream, and it's really good actually. If you haven't ever tried it before, it's something worth having indeed, I believe. But anyways, so let's begin here. The founding of mighty Rome starts with the story of Romulus and Remus, whether they were suckled by a she-wolf as infants or descended from the Trojan war hero Aeneas. The Latins who settled Rome had their crude dwellings, transformed into a true city by their Etruscan overlords. Etruscans would have been in kind of northwestern Italy, parts of northeastern as well. Oh, the Greeks. Oh yeah, because I remember. I think they used to call South Italy Magna Graecia, and maybe that's why there's sometimes a division between South Italians and North Italians, is because really they were inhabited um, by two groups of different people who actually may have originally been had a shared ancestry long ago. I wouldn't be surprised. And then there's also the Carthaginians, and the Carthaginians, I think they were. Let me look here to make sure. Northwest Semites, probably Canaanites. Okay. So, and then they ruled a lot of North Africa, from what I've learned. Um, Interesting. And maybe they could even had North African ancestry as well. Um, I'd have to make sure though. Do they had or did they have? Majority of the Punic populace seem to have had African, indeed Negroid ancestry, whether described as Carthaginians, Phoenicians, or Punics of North Africa. They were certainly a mix of Aborigine North Africans that included the native Berbers, Moors, and then the Amazigh, or the Berbers and Amazigh are kind of one and the same. Now, when I think about Berbers or Amazigh, I think about Egypt because some of the rulers of Egypt were of Berber and Amazigh origin. But this was also it ties back to what I think about the Morgan when she says you bow down to no one, because that was a very important message we learned when we eventually liberated ourselves from ancient Egypt. And this is kind of something I kind of tie into, maybe past life experiences or even just looking at history as a whole or kind of certain things that were passed down. Um, and it says here, let me read about more about the Etruscans or Romans. The Etruscans were master builders who gave Rome its architecture, gods, and gladiators. After overthrowing their conquerors, the Roman Republic expanded quickly to incorporate the Latins, Etruscans, originally from Anatolia, Greek settlers to the south, and Gauls to the north. Gauls to the north, yeah. Republic gave way to empire, and after 1,000 years, it was time for Rome to face its end. The numerous invaders arrived on the scene as the empire weakened and crumbled. The wars with the Ostrogoths from 535 to 554 AD had a lasting impact that left Italy truly devastated and depopulated. And the Ostrogoths and the Visigoths, I think, were related, and it said they originally came from Scandinavia. Um, but yeah, no, it's interesting to think about. Um, or so well, they said the Ostrogoths also came from Poland, but I think the Goths originally they came from Scandinavia. So let me make sure if I'm getting that right. Yeah, it says origin of Goths come from southern Scandinavia. Yeah, crossed in three ships under their king Beoreg to the southern shore of the Baltic Sea, where they settled after defeating the Vandals and other Germanic people. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Um, so when we go to our ancient sample results, these are essentially DNA matches that I've been matched with a number of different ancient civilizations. The ones of ancient populations were just ones that were really prominent that I connected with through genetic distance, I think, as a result, or just kind of may have been genetically similar. And this is essentially a union of all matching samples I have. And the boxes that are larger are essentially just samples that are essentially closer to my DNA, and it'll change over time as they add more. But yeah, no. So here we have the Aurelians, as I mentioned before. Then we also have the Pannonians, and the Pannonians, if I can get it to, let me see if I can get it to read. Yeah, so the Pannonians, they were also Aurelian tribes who inhabited the southern part of what later became Roman Pannonia. Some of these Pannonian tribes were Celticized, and that's what I mentioned earlier about the Celts coming down south, and eventually they really kind of integrated with the Aurelians, and they became essentially what we now know today as, well, some people say they became part of Albania, Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, but they also were probably the Milesians who eventually migrated to Spain and um, went north to Ireland and the Celtic Isles. Yeah, because even the name Alba, Albania, the original name for Scotland or Scottish Gaelic, it's Alba, and it sounds almost identical to Albania, so there's probably that connection there. Let's keep reading though. Archaeology shows that we're culturally different from southern Aurelians and the Celts. Iron mining and production were an important aspect of their lives. Like other Aurelians, they frequently came to conflict with the ancient Macedonians, the Roman Republic to subdue the Aurelians. Divisions into Pannonia, Dalmatia on the south. Oh yeah, this is where Dalmatians comes from. It comes from the Pannonians, who are now modern day, as at least as a country at the moment, Croatia. Yeah, and I think my ancestry, other than Scottish Highlands, I actually got quite a bit of Croatian. So probably this is where probably some of the ancestry had come from. Is they could have migrated out of Croatia and went to other areas. And yeah, this is a picture of a Dalmatian. Sure, my dad's wife Jewel would probably appreciate this since she's really into dogs. But yeah, I guess I came from a group of people that were also tied to the name of Dalmatians. Okay. They were notorious seafaring people, and goes back to the idea of the Palladians, which means plan, to sail. These were sailors. And what do you know? The Pannonian Aurelians were sailors. So it makes sense that. And they may have had a connection to the Pelagatians, and the Pelagatians were a group of people that, it says here, Pelagatians had migrated from Asia Minor to the Aegean Basin in the 4th century, in the 4th millennium BC. So 4000 BC. Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Asia Minor. I think that's from Turkey or what is now modern Turkey. I'd have to check. Anatolia. Yeah, so it would have been from what we know as Turkey, or and I think that actually there's a place in Asia Minor called Miletus, or yeah, Miletus was an ancient Greek city on the western coast of Anatolia. This is probably where also the origin of the Milesians came from. Was from this area. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting to read about. Um, it really all kind of ties together. And they used fast and maneuverable ships, which were later adapted by the Romans. No surprise there. And very warlike warriors. It kind of reminds me of what the Romans used to say about the Gaels or the Celts, where you know, especially when it came to the women. And there were actually also some fierce Aurelian queen warriors. I mean, even the mention of Tuata. Um, you know, I'd have to read about. I have to read a little bit about her history. Um, Tuata may have been a queen, but she was a ferocious warrior above all, aggressive and hot-headed, with a strong sense of justice. Uh, what did she do? Attack Sicily and the coastal Greek colonies, which part of the Adrian navy. Simultaneously, she antagonized Rome. Oh, they had to send a large fleet. Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that the people or Tuatha, the Aurelians and the Pannonians, were all eventually over time they migrated and they became what we know today as the Celtic people. Also, that the Romans were kind of had a tough time with, really, because especially when it came to the women, they said. I think there's a quote. I'd have to see this quote from a Roman general about Celtic women. Um, Yeah, a Celtic woman is often the equal of any Roman man in hand-to-hand combat. She is as beautiful as she is strong. Her body is comely but fierce. The physiques of our Roman women, uh, pale in comparison. In a sense that the Roman soldiers really had a hard time with these Celtic warriors because again they Celtic society, women and men were essentially kind of seen as equals, and the queen, or essentially at least in Irish folklore, they talk about for example, a queen such as the Morgan would actually, or a woman of similar status would help kind of recognize the sovereignty of the king after he had only proven his own value, essentially. So it's very much a balance between both men and women in the Celtic society, and probably maybe even going back to the Aurelians, I'd imagine as well. Um, yeah, it says here Pannonians wore bronze torques around their necks, very common around about the Celts. I really feel like these people were Celts Aurelians. They really had kind of merged together. Um, yeah, it's really interesting to read about. Let me look here. We talked about Roman Hispania already, and then we have the Franks. And the Franks, uh, this is very interesting because I actually read in the Volsunga saga, or essentially one of the Norse poems, it talks about the Franks, or there were these men descended from the line of Siggi, and they had migrated to what is now known as Frankland. Um, and these were probably the people who would eventually become the Franks, or also probably connected to the Normans because they all kind of trace their roots back to Scandinavia, like Norway, probably Norway, or maybe even parts of Sweden, probably, I'd imagine. But it says here, Francia, also known as the Kingdom of the Franks, was the largest post-Roman barbarian kingdom in Western Europe. It is the predecessor of the modern states of France and Germany, no surprise there. Because I think in Germany, especially Western Germany, there are places such as Frankfurt that still have a connection with the Franks. And then if you go east towards Berlin, it would have more connection to the Saxons. Yeah, it makes sense. Francia was among the last surviving Germanic kingdom from the migration period era before its partition in 843. The core Frankish territories inside the former Western Roman Empire was close to the Rhine and mass rivers in the north. After a period where small kingdoms interacted with the remaining Gallo-Roman institutions to their south, a single kingdom uniting them was founded by Clovis I, who was crowned the king of the Franks in 496. Geography of the Frankish realm varied over time, but a basic split between eastern and western domains persisted. No surprise there. And even in modern day Germany, there's still this kind of division that some people have to work through, like the people of even the people in the eastern parts, like people of Bavaria and people of Berlin. They tend to think of themselves differently. And of course, you have the people of Westphalia that have their own thoughts. Actually, my some of my ancestors from my dad's side, from his mother's side, actually came from uh, Cleves long ago, which borders the Netherlands. So that's another interesting thing to think about. Says here the Eastern Kingdom, Australasia. Oh, sounds like Asia at the end. Interesting. Centered on the Rhine and Meuse and expanded eastward into Central Europe. The Western Kingdom Nestrasia was founded in northern Roman Gaul. In Germany, there are prominent places named after the Franks, such as the region of Franconia, Frankfurt, and Frankenstein Castle. And I think I was connected also to Bavarian Franconia, and there may have been a mix between different groups, probably. Um, let's see here. So after that, we talked. Okay, so this is probably my Uncle Herman, one of his favorite groups that I talked to him about the Cherusci, which were they were very prominent figure, and I mentioned about them a little bit earlier. They were the ones who essentially kind of rebelled against Julius Caesar when he wanted to conquer Germania. And I'll read a little bit more into detail here. It says the Cherusci inhabited parts of the plains and forests of northwestern Germany in the area of the Weser River in present-day Hanover. Famous chieftain Arminius led the Germanic tribes to victory at the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest in 9 AD, destroying 3 Roman legions under command of Publius Quintilius Varus, and what is considered one of Rome's greatest defeats. This prevented Romanization of Germanic people east of the Rhine and was a turning point in history. Germanic people would fight. So east of the Rhine, the Rhine. Okay, so this would have been. My Uncle Herman talks a lot about the Rhine Valley. I have to look at it geographically. Where. Okay, so it would have been somewhere. Essentially, there's a town called Cologne, Germany. So I guess east of that would have been where they had prevented some of the Romanization. And Cologne, Cologne to Cleves. Let's look. How far is that? Oh, it's not too far. It's just an hour and 25 minutes. Okay, so, but there was a little area that's, okay, that makes sense. Interesting. Germanic people would fight Rome for 700 years. That's a long time, actually. I didn't realize it was that long. That's a long time. But at least it says here Arminius was taken by the Romans as a child. I didn't know that. I thought he had voluntarily served in the army, but it seems like it was a little bit of a different case. Taught Latin and Romanized. Despite his Roman upbringing and member of the equiate class, he was not able to turn a blind eye to the suffering of his people, because I was still his tribe, which makes sense. Eventually, the German Chatti tribe conquered the Cherusci in 88 AD, and the Cherusci began to disappear from records as they were absorbed into later Germanic populations such as the Saxons, Thuringies, Franks, Bavarians, and Alemanni. And I think Alemanni, Aleman, that's a Spanish word for Germany. Yeah, Aleman, Alemanni. Yeah, makes sense. So after that, we have the Gauls or the Gauls. Yeah, this is another group of people. This is where we're starting to get that connection with the Aurelians and also the Celts, or yeah, the Aurelian. Yeah, it's kind of that connection because we really are a a um, a group of people that eventually did come together. Um, so let me see if I can get this. It's interesting to learn about all the history and it says here that the Gauls were Celtic tribes who lived predominantly in eastern and southern France. They had a complex political system involving clans ran by a council of elders. A king would have much of their powers held in check by the council. Gaul tended to be politically divided and only during dangerous times such as the invasion of Caesar could the Gauls unite under a single leader like Vercingetorix. After the Roman conquest of Gaul, the land was split into provinces and people divided into 3 groups. The Belgae, the bravest and farthest from civilization, the Gallic Celts, and the Aquitaine towards Spain, Hispania. Gauls practiced animism and worshipped animals. Druids proceeded over human or animal sacrifices in winter groves or crew temples. The Druids were key to preserving festivals and lunar solar calendar. Gauls would nail heads of enemies to walls or dangle them from the neck of horses to instill fear. Which again, as I told you, I remember telling my dad's wife Jewel that probably a Celtic or a Gallic or a woman or a Gaulish woman, however you want to, however you want to describe it, would probably be a woman that would probably, cut off the head of a Roman soldier and drink the blood out of his skull. These were women that were very strong. Again, it probably goes back to the connection of some of the Aurelians as well. We were probably really kind of connected in that way as well. Uh, Let me read a little bit about Roman Hispania. I'm gonna see if there's any more details that ties back to the Gales. Um, yeah, so here it talks about the Celtic Iberians who had lived in Western Iberia. Yeah, so this would be the people who were Celtic Iberians who were essentially Romanized. Yeah. But they still had their Celtic roots deep down, just like Hermann Siegfried had his own roots to the Cherusci. Um, the Gallo-Romans. Let me see if I can get this. Yeah, it's interesting to read about all of it. It says here the term Gallo-Roman describes the Romanized culture of Gaul under the rule of the Roman Empire. So the Gaul or the Gallic people I mentioned earlier. This was characterized by the Gaulish adoption of Roman morals and way of life in a uniquely Gaulish context. The well-studied meld of culture. Oh, I already mentioned this before, I think. Yeah, it was something and I talked about. Yeah, some of the Gaulish deities having Roman names, and some of them like Epona still having her own name. Epona or Epona, actually, that's a name in The Legend of Zelda for a horse. Epona was primarily a female name of Irish origin. Okay, so there's a connection between the Gauls or Gallo-Romans. Well, really, however way you want to slice it, it really goes back to the Gaelic origin. It has that connection to the Irish, which makes sense. Um, Scordisci. Let me pull them up. So these were the Celtic tribes that had fought with the Aurelians. Actually, they were some of the Celticizers, as people would call them. As funny as that sounds, or as interesting rather. It's just you don't hear the name, hear it said that often like that. But the Scordisci were a Celtic group formed after the Gallic invasion of 300,000 strong into the Baltic region, forming a new mix of local Aurelian Thracians and Celts with settlements in Aurelia, Thrace, and Dacia, which makes sense. They subjugated the Pannonians and Celticized them. At their peak of expansion, the Scordisci territory stretched into modern-day Serbia, Croatia, Bulgaria, and Romania. By the second half of the 3rd century BC, they became the most important power in the northern Balkans. Philip V of Macedon was the first to mention this group as they allied with Macedonia against Rome. Roman historians state that Scordisci drank blood and sacrificed prisoners to deities similar to Mars, the Roman god of war. In 15 BC, the Scordisci were crushed by Emperor Tiberius, who forced them to become subjects of Rome. Okay, so that is a part of these Scordisci. When I think about Scordisci, I also think about the word Scotia or Scotland, or um, they also talk about that one of the original settlers of Scotland was from a Egyptian pharaoh or princess called Scotia. So there could have been a connection there. And actually, the origin for the name Scotland comes from the Latin Scotia, land of the Scots. There could have been some kind of connection there, I'd imagine. Then we have Andalusia, and so this is probably some of my ancestry that I have from North Africa. Um, let me see if I can pull it up. Because part of Spain was inhabited or came into kind of rule by the Moors in the 700 AD. I'm going to see if I can pull this up. Andalusia, also known as Muslim Iberia, was a medieval Muslim territory. At its greatest point, it occupied northwestern Iberia and present-day southern France. Um, this was also it's interesting because my grandma from my mother's side, her last name is Martel, and I believe there was a kind of a uh, well-known Frankish king named Charles Martel who actually stopped the Moors or the Moorish Empire from expanding uh, into much of what it was known as Frankland or the or modern day France, which is interesting to think about. It says here it generally refers to the parts of the peninsula governed by Moors from 711 to 1492. Very long time. Actually, 1492 was also the beginning or the discovery of the New World. At its greatest point, the administrative units included Andalusia, Portugal, Galicia. Galicia actually comes from the word Gallic or Gael, so there were Gaels or Gallic people that had probably it goes back to the Aurelians and Milesians who had sailed from that part of Spain to Ireland and to the other Celtic Isles, probably maybe Scotland or Wales. But they had ruled or led or yeah, their kingdoms led to a rise in cultural, yeah, Portugal, Galicia, Castile, Leon, Nievria, Aragon, Barcelona, and Septimania. Yeah, that's something I want to mention too for those who don't know much about the Spanish spoken in Spain. In Spanish, typically spoken in Latin America, you would pronounce the word Barcelona with just as with the C sound. But from what I've learned from how some of the Spaniards how they say it in their own dialect or their own way of speaking, they pronounce the some of the words with a th or some of the sounds. So instead of Barcelona, it would be Barcelona, but with the th sound, which is interesting to think about. I know there was one time where I was watching a man or Ukrainian or a man of Ukrainian North African ancestry that had, I guess he had spent time growing up in Spain, and so he would use the th sound. So when he talked to, for example, I believe he it was a Mexican or someone else he was speaking to of indigenous ancestry. He started using the th sound, and the person from Latin America, or more so indigenous ancestry, he said, you're bougie, you're speaking like a Spaniard, Um, but the thing is there's nothing wrong with learning different ways of speaking, and actually I myself have a wee bit of native ancestry. It's around I think 12 to 15%, but for me, I like to learn kind of both ways of speaking because I think it's good to learn kind of some of the changes that happened, and I think even in places like Argentina, they have some influence from Italian words, and I think in Brazil with Portuguese they have some influence from I think Italian and French. I'd have to recheck that, but that is something I've learned about. Anyways, it says here, rule under these kingdoms led to a rise in cultural exchange and cooperation between Muslims and Christians. Under the Caliphate of Cordoba, Andalusia was a beacon of learning, and Cordoba became one of the leading cultural and economic centers of Europe and the Islamic world. Achievements in trigonometry, astronomy, surgery, pharmacology, agronomia, or agronomy. What is that? Let me check the origin of that word. Oh, science of soil management and crop production. Oh, I think actually in the Middle East there are areas where they have done certain things, like turn certain desert-like areas into kind of forest or kind of fields, which is interesting to think about. Other fields all came from here. For almost its entire history, Andalusia was in conflict with the Christian kingdoms to the north. The Alhambra Palace in Granada reflects the culture and art of the last centuries of Andalusia. And I believe I went to a restaurant called Alhambra back in Florida. It's interesting to learn about. Um, so then we go to the Belgi. And I know my dad is really big into Belgium. So this is probably where it comes from, the Belgi people. Um, let me look here. See if I can get it. See if I can get it to. Yeah, I just figured it'd be interesting to share all this. Um, let's see here. The ethnic name Belgi comes from the Proto-Celtic word Belgi. It probably comes from, I've also read it could also come from the Firbolg as well, which were one of the original people that had lived in ancient Ireland before the Tuatha Dé Danann and the Milesians. Anyways, it says here it means the people who swell with anger or battle fury. These Celtic people lived north of the Gauls and Aquitaine and differed by language, customs, and law. Caesar considered them to be the bravest of the Gallic populations as they were furthest removed from the refinement and civilization of Rome. Not surprised. As well as constantly warring with the Germanic tribes to the east. Again, these were probably women who would probably, or some of the women could have. Yeah, they were the ones where the Romans were probably like these women. We shouldn't really mess with them. It says here Caesar himself suffered his greatest defeat at the hands of the Belgi, but finally subdued them in 57 BC. And of course, probably the Ben were also really strong fighters as well. But it says here Belgi tribes also settled in Britain, populating many parts of the lowlands, with key centers in Colchester, St. Albans, and Silchester. These settlers introduced the heavy plow to the region, which greatly expanded by the usable farmland. Colchester, where is that? So it'd be Essex, east of England. Where is that on a map? Let me see. Colchester to London. So this would be on the eastern seaboard of England. Interesting. Um, then we have the Thuringi, which I mentioned about earlier. Then we have the Samnites. I have to read about them. Samnites. I'm gonna try to get it to work. Let me see if I can. There, perfect. Oh, let me look. It's a lot to share, but I think it's kind of neat to kind of share. Um, oops, my bad. Sometimes this happens. Okay. The Semites were a powerful nation of Indo-European hill people who dominated the southern part of Italy. They consisted of four tribes: the Herpini, Cudinian, Caracinian, and Pentri. They were ferocious in combat and offered fierce resistance to Rome in three different wars. At the Battle of the Condline Forks, the Semites delivered a humiliating defeat to the Romans, who were ill-equipped to fight in the mountainous terrain. As a result, the Romans were forced to abandon the Hoplite legion to which they had adapted from the Etruscans, thus the creation of the Manupian legion, which was versatile and allowed adaptation to different terrains. Furthermore, the Romans realized the importance to extend careers for soldiers, as considerable time was now required to train them. In 290 BC, the Samnites had finally been conquered and adapted into a new territory under the Roman Republic. The popular Roman gladiator class Samnite was later named after these people of Samninium. Wow, I didn't realize that. Interesting. Okay, then we can go into the Etruscans now. The Etruscans, I believe, were I think it goes back to the founding of Rome, I think. I'd have to check to I'd have to double check to make sure though. Let's see if we can get this to work. The Etruscan civilization was highly advanced and developed in Italy around 900 BC, and their homeland was called Etruria. They would call themselves Rasnia. Greeks would refer to them as Tyrrhenians. Romans as the Tolsi. Okay, so they're their own group. Herodotus claims they were migrants from western Anatolia, whereas Hellenicus of Lesbos claimed they hailed from Thalasia. Etruscan culture was very similar to Magna Graecia. That's bigger, essentially Greater Greece, yeah, in the south. Although considerably more aristocratic, the mining of copper and iron led to an enrichment of the Etruscans, expansion of the influence in Italy and the western Mediterranean Sea. The Etruscans allied themselves with Carthage in an attempt to control trade and gain influence. By the 4th century, Etruria was dealing with Gallic invasions from the north and Roman annexing its cities to the south. The Rome-Etruscan Wars would bring its final defeat as the Etruscans assimilated fully into the Roman Republic. Okay, I see now. So they were originally their own group. And then there's the Aquitani people, and this might be people. They may have been related to the Basque people, potentially of northeastern Spain and southern France. We can check to make sure though. Gonna see if we can. The Aquitani shared ancestry with the Boscones and Iberians as a pre-Indo-European people and spoke a Proto-Basque language. Yeah, so they were connected. They inhabited the region of southwest France between the river Garonne and the Pyrenees Mountains. Julius Caesar clearly distinguished Aquitani from the Gauls and the Belgi, who also inhabited border Gaul, as they had their own language, customs, and laws. The Atlantic coast of the Aquitani was sandy and had thin soil. However, gold and silver mines were abundant, and they had established fine ironworks. Romans record mentioned that the Aquitani is a wealthy people. Not long after Julius Caesar defeated Vercingetorix, so that would have been one of the Gaulish leaders at the Battle of Georgia Vidia in Alesia. The new Roman province of Gallia was established, combining Aquitani, Belgica. Latin became the predominant language of the region during Roman times, but even today Basque remain, and the southern regions remain common. And then we have the Olsi tribe. Well, sounds like my grandma's dog, Olsi. I think Olsi, I think also means bear in Spanish, I think. Or is it also, I'd have to check. Yeah, also. Yeah. Yeah, I was wanting to make sure. I don't know if it has a name in Spanish, though. Um, yeah, Olsa. Yeah, but the Olsi were an ancient tribe dwelling beyond the Quadi in a woody and mountainous country bordering the Celtic Bui, Dacia, and numerous Germanic tribes. This region equates to modern Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and Ukraine. Tacitus records these people as speaking Pannonian and Gallic tongues. They are believed to have originated in Celtic lands to the west, migrated to this region in order to farm and mine iron. Cut off from the Celtic world, they are forced to pay tribute to the Germanic tribes in the area. During the campaigns of Marcus Aurelius against the Macromeni, the Ulci resettled to southern Pannonia, probably because it might have also been kind of family in a way. Um, merged into the Suevi population, Basque Confederation. And then there's the Visigoths, and these were known as some of the original founders of Spanish kingdoms. They might also have maybe a connection potentially to the modern day Ukrainians or people from, well, southern Scandinavia. Because I think there are a lot of the people who are currently Ukrainians. Some of them not only have Slavic ancestry but also ancestry from Swedish Vikings, from what I've read. It says here the Visigoths emerged from earlier Germanic Goth groups, possibly the Thervingi, sounds like Thor again, who had invaded the Roman Empire beginning in 376 and had defeated the Romans in the battle of Andriapol in 378. Relations between the Romans and the Visigoths were variable, alternately warring with one another and making treaties when convenient. The Visigoths invaded Italy under Alaric I and sacked Rome in 410. After the Visigoths sacked Rome, they began settling down, first in southern Gaul and eventually in Hispania, where they founded the Visigoth kingdom and maintained presence from the 5th to 8th century. Um, and then there was 589, they converted from Arianism to Nicene Christianity. Council of Nicaea, probably from the Romans. Arianism. So this is a belief that kind of reminds me of maybe what some of the Jews kind of thought about Jesus, essentially saying, he wasn't who he was claimed to be. To me, at least as a pagan, I kind of see Yeshua, his original name, as kind of like a teacher, kind of like the Buddha, or other prominent kind of teachers. This is probably kind of a polar opposites kind of going at it in a way. Potentially, it says here, gradually adopting the culture of the Hispano-Roman subjects. Yeah, their legal code, the Visigothic Code, abolished the long-standing practice of applying different laws from Romans and Visigoths. Once legal distinctions were no longer being made between Romani and Gothia, they became known collectively as Hispania. Okay, that makes sense. Let's see. And then there's the Acadian Greeks. Okay, this is going to be neat because, as I said before, to me, I feel like the Aurelians and Celtic and the Acadian Greeks were probably, they could have had a shared ancestry with each other. Um, yeah, they were known to be one of the ancient people of Greece, one of the ancient tribes or groups of people rather. Yeah. Acadians were one of the four major tribes into which Herodotus divided the Greeks. They populated the region of Acadia in the northern Peloponnese and played an active role in the colonization of Italy. They also founded the city of Croton, located in Calabria and southern Italy. Oh, that's where Ava's from. I think she said it's an Italian cook or chef I watch with her husband or boyfriend Harper, and I love her cooking channel. If any of you guys are interested in watching her channel, or if you ask, uh, I can put a link below, or you can also write um, Probably you could find her channel by, I can even type it right now, just so you can watch. Um, Ava cooking American versus Italian. So I'm gonna see if I can pull it up. Yeah, this is her and her partner. Yeah, they're very good. I love watching their channel. Um, and I'll let you guys kind of think who won the cook-off, whether it was him or her. So it says here, Croton, sounds like crouton, was famous for producing generations of winners in the ancient Olympic Games and other Pan-Hellenic games. Pythagoras founded his school, the Pythagoreans, in Croton in 530 BC. Unlike other major Greek tribes, the Akkadians did not have a separate dialect but spoke a form of Doric. And Doric was ancient Greek dialect of the Dorians. And these were, oh, they were also another group of Hellenic people. Over time, the Akkadians cemented their common identity in response to rising power of Sparta to the south and Sillon to the east. Arcadia became a league of 12 city-states, and after the fall of Macedon was able to take over the whole of the Peloponnesian. However, the Romans had other plans that eventually defeated the Achaeans at the Battle of Corinth in 148 BC, who dissolved the league. And then the last group, which is the, oh, was it? I think there was the Quadi. Yeah, the Quadi. Let me see if I can get them. Yeah, right there. Yep. Yeah, this part was kind of long, but I figured it'd be neat to share. I know it might have seemed like a bit of a history lesson, um, but I think it was neat to share because it kind of bring ties in like the history of all these people, which I think is kind of neat. But we're almost done with the history lessons, as far as uh, as far as the lengthy kind of passages go. So it says here the Quadi were a Germanic tribe who lived in modern Moravia, Slovakia, and Austria during the first encounters with the Roman Empire. Sounds like Astara, Austria, Astara, very similar. Astara is actually, in Irish paganism, it'd be called the Eastern or the spring equinox, but in Wicca, kind of one branch of paganism, it was known as one of the eight Sabbats, or one of the kind of the eight pagan holidays. And Astara comes from says here Anglo-Saxon goddess, but we want to make sure we get this right. I can already see my dad's wife Julie kind of grinning from ear to ear. I want to make sure. So it says here Astara, the Germanic goddess of spring, the Norse goddess of rebirth and everlasting youth. It says here the tale is that Astara, the ancient Germanic goddess of the spring, transformed a bird into a hare, and the hare responded by laying colored eggs for her festival. Oh, so that's the Easter Bunny. Um, kind of the tradition probably of the Easter Bunny and eating chocolate from eggs. Uh, yeah, that's probably where it comes from, I'd imagine. Yeah, so, but it comes from it might even come from not just Anglo-Saxons, but it could come from the Quadi people, actually. Not trying to steal, well, I don't want to say I'm trying to steal their thunder, but I'm trying to get them to be more open-minded, that there's more Germanic people than just Quadi or than just Anglo or Saxon, and of course, they probably know that full well, but just need to reinforce that. So it says here they were a Sueban tribe related to the Macromeni and Longobards who moved into the region previously inhabited by the Celtic Bui. And the Suevans were another large group of Germanic people originally from the Elbe River and what is now Germany. Um, Elbe River, where is that? Let me look. There's so many different tribes. uh, Let me look. Where's this? So it'd be the eastern part of Germany. Yeah, eastern part. So somewhere Hamburg, Dresden, some of these areas. It's interesting, again, how many tribes there were. But again, they seem to be their own group of people. Um, they had a warlike spirit governed by kings of their own noble stock. For centuries, they fought wars with the Romans. No surprise there. Emperor Valentinius spent most of his reign defending the Danube frontier against hordes of Quadi Goths and Samaritans united under Quadi king Gibnius. Gibnit, Gab, Gabinus. It almost sounds like Gabrielle, or well, actually, my middle name is Gabriel, and they say that is a that has a Norman root or Norman origin to the name Gabriel. Gabriel. Maybe there could be a connection there. Maybe. The eventual fate of the Quadi is not so clear. It is thought some migrated with the Vandals to northern Portugal. Others settled into Pannonia, whilst modern Bavaria still shares linguistic ties to the ancient Quadi homeland. Well, that's a +1 for the Bavarians out there. And then here, we're finally done with the history lesson. Um, I might write a thumbnail actually for those who kind of want to, uh, in case if people want to uh, kind of look beyond the history lessons. Let me look here. Give me a moment here. Okay, so here we're going to do some genetic matches or archaeological matches. So essentially, the smaller the number, the closer I am connected to these people. And the kind of the percentage, such as 96% versus all users, means that out of all the people who have kind of done genetic matches with these people, I'm 96% closer than other users. So this is the Justinian plague victims, and I'm just gonna kind of quickly go through this. These were people that are connected to modern day people from Spain and Portugal. Ancient ancestors were mainly people from Spain, maybe connection to people or North Africans or Moors who were coming in, as well as Aurelians, Romans, and Samnites, which makes sense. Then there's also medieval Piedmont, which is 70%. As far as a match. Uh, and yeah, Andalusia would have been essentially a lot of southern Spain, which makes sense. So people essentially in southern Spain would also be an example. Maybe not necessarily have North African roots per se, but probably a strong likelihood of a mixing. So it says here. Says here, Calagno is near Turin in northern Italy. Um, Yeah, so northern Italy. Gael, Aurelian, Cherusci. Oh, so these would have been these northern Italians, or people who settled northern Italia. It's Italy. Some of them were Frank and Cherusci, which makes sense because there was an invasion of Germanic tribes who had went south to Italy, and probably some of them settled there, I'd imagine. The Aurelian Dalmatian people, 87%. Post-Reconquista Granada, 92. Series. These would have been Celtic Iberians, Corinthian Greeks. Interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting. Then you have people from. I'm gonna kind of go through some of this. There were also people of Iberian Tifia of Valencia, um, Spanish Cordoba Caliphate. Let me look here. Then there was Iron Age, Mosin, Sapran, Hungary as well. Roman Aurelian Lombard grave. Then you have Proto Villanova, Martin Securu. I'm gonna try to refresh some of this. Yeah, it's taken some time for me. Ooh, we got also there's late medieval Ashkenazi cemetery, Erfurt, Germany. Um, Bronze Age Makrin necropolis, Siberia, or not Siberia, Serbia. My bad. I wonder if the names come from a similar root. Um, Let me look here. I'm gonna see what it says here. Uh, Muslims converted to Christianity until their expulsion in 610. Many of these descend from the local population who had in turn been converted from Christianity to Muslim earlier in history. Okay, so these were Celtic Iberians who had converted to Islam and then who had changed back. I see. So these were genetically Celtic Iberians, Romans, Aurelians, Gallo-Romans, and the Corinthian Greeks. It says, according to Corinthian myth, the city of Corinthia was founded by Corinthianos, descendant of Zeus himself. Another myth suggests it was founded by the goddess Ephria, a daughter of the Titan Oceanus. Thus, the ancient name of the city of Prithia. It seems likely this city was the site of a Bronze Age Mycenaean palace city-like. Okay. During the Trojan War, the Corinthians participated in the leadership of Agamemnon. Corinthian had nonetheless remained a backwater until 747 BC. Became a unified state. Okay, so a lot of um, the people mentioned here, they were genetically or originally really kind of more so people from Rome, Italy, uh, Greece, or Celtic Iberians, and then there was the influence of people who had come from North Africa, which makes sense. But realistically, we were always, at least the Celtic people were always kind of connected to North Africans if you go back to Egypt, because some of the ancient high kings of Ireland, um, they were matched with the ancient people of Egypt, and they matched genetically. So even if the Moors hadn't come in, we would have still had some ancestry from Egypt. Um, and then maybe even some say that some of the Berber or Amazigh or the indigenous North Africans were some of our ancestors too. Um, but I know it can get a little bit messy because there was also the Arabs who also came in. And of course, that has been healing over time, thankfully enough, or I think will heal as the rainbow continues to shine. Let me look here. Let's see, there's also Gallo-Roman Lombard grave, 78%. These are the people of northern Italy, and the Lombards, I think, were, I have to see, the Lombards were, who were the Lombards? Germanic people who conquered most of the Italian peninsula. Yeah, northwestern Germany. Okay, so kind of near Cleves in a way. Um, medieval Andalusia, Aurelian Croatia, Slovenia, Asberg, Bavaria, Granada, Granada, Scythian, southern Moldova, 92%. I think that it was said that the Scythians could have had a connection to the people um, of also modern day Ireland and Scotland. And yeah, that's some things I've read about them. Northern Hungary, or Hungary rather, as my Hungarian friend has, Canadian, Scottish Hungarian friend has told me about. Hungary, Valencia, Granada, Thuringi tribe. Um, so it seems like there's a lot of people who connect with the Thuringi. No surprise there. Central Roman, Gallo-Roman, Slovakia, Montenegro, Portuguese, Portugal, Bohemia. And Bohemia, these were connected to the Visigoths. And then, of course, here it says Cordoba Caliphate. Hungary, Croatia. Then there's also Nordhaus, France. So, because I do have some ancestry matching with the French from the north. Maybe that's where the Old de France part of the ancestry comes from. It comes from the Belgi people, which would make sense, yeah. Then I have Anne Catherine of Church, Switzerland, and that would have been from my mother's maternal line. Apparently, would be also related to, yes, again, I've been healing with the English, and apparently one of Catherine or Anne Catherine's uh, offspring was Boris Johnson, I think, which is interesting. Um, Iron, Slovenia, Croatia, Montenegro, Ostrogoth mix. Um, the Ostrogoths were the people who could have been a mix of Ostrogoth and Aurelian. Okay, that makes sense. Then there's Germany, Lenchheim, Germany, 88%. Gallo-Roman. Uh, okay. Frankish grave. The Druski, there you go. French, South Dutch, Flemish, West German, Portuguese. Oops, my bad. Oh, didn't mean that to kind of ebb away, as it were. Okay. Ooh. Okay, let's continue. These are just top samples from different ages. So the Neolithic age, there would have been Bavaria. Bronze Age, Serbia. Croatia, Iberia, Late Bronze Age, Aurelian Dalmatian, Montenegro, Hungary, Bohemia, Croatia, Moldova, Austria, Slovakia, Hungary, Nordhaus, France, Roman Age, Granada, Spain, Thuringi, Portugal, Armenia. Oh, there's the Armenian reference to my one of my brothers is married to an Armenian, so there's that connection there. Frankish grave, Dark Ages, Justinian plague, Piedmont, Lombard, Andalusia, Hungary, Rome, Gallo-Roman, Hungary, Germany, Medieval Age, Valencia, Cordoba, Spaniard, Ashkenazi Cemetery. Where is Erfurt, Germany? I wonder where that is. I'd have to see. Oh, it's a beautiful little town. Um, this is 4 hours. Okay, so good distance, kind of in central Germany. Um, Italy, Reconquista, Switzerland. Okay. And this is all this history eventually is bringing together the rainbow because I am the rainbow, essentially. Whether I'm related to people from Ireland or Scotland, and there's this other website I use called Genoplot where I've done DNA matches and I've gotten matches with, and I'll probably do it at the end of the video, of people that were uh, Scottish Highlanders and other groups. I'll kind of do that a little bit later though, just to kind of share you a bigger part of the rainbow. Outlier samples. Uh, Jean-Paul Marat, Revolutionary France. Okay, so this is some of the Native American symbols I got, and this is probably something particularly my Uncle Herman would be interested in. So here we have some ancestry connected to what would be called I guess the word mestizo, where you would have people from Spain mixing with the natives, and then yeah, so there's a high percentage there, which is no surprise because that is part of my ancestry this lifetime, particularly from my dad's side. Um, there's also Iroquois tribe of St. Lawrence River. Now this is just 1%, but there's still that genetic distance there, which means it popped up in my results. Um, and these would be people that were connected to the Athabascans. So Athabascans would be people uh, essentially from Alaska that had migrated down south. Um, then we have here Pacific Northwest Amerindian. And actually, I live in the inland Northwest, so I probably may have had some native ancestors long ago who had traveled from the north and had came to the southern part of what is now known as Colombia, or maybe even parts of Peru. And this was found 850 AD, so not as far back as people think, relatively speaking. Native American Washington State. I'm actually border Washington State, and this would have been from 6300 BC, so a very long time ago. Um, and I'm gonna see they would have been related to the Apache, the Navajo, the Maya, the Kumeyaay, the Lusitania, North Amerindian. Then there's the Amerindian Mi'kmaq, New Brunswick. New Brunswick is, I think it's a province in Canada, near Prince Edward Island, so eastern Canada. Alaskan Athabascan, Aztec, um, Greenland. Okay, interesting. Ancient Peru, Maya. Okay. So it starts with mainly people that were probably, originally from Alaska to maybe more so the people who had, and I think even in with the Cree and Hopi people, they talk about the red people and the yellow people, and some of them, and I think the Navajo and Hopi say the Navajo were the yellow people from Alaska and the Hopi were the original red people. But they had to come together in time, and of course it's just like people in Europe. There was infighting at times, but people eventually came together, and that is part of the healing rainbow indeed. Modern populations, this is just groups of people that um, I tend to be genetically related to, at least from this website. I'll show a more varied example from Genoplot just to give you guys a more broad example. This would mainly be from Spain, Portugal, Andalusia, Castile, Catalonia. And of course here we have the admixture, and this is just one example of admixture. We have a lot of ancestry from the Atlantic and North Sea, and we'll break this down more as we go to Genoplot. Then we have some native ancestry, East Mediterranean, West Mediterranean, Northeast African, Sub-Saharan. Um, this is just another example. I have a bit of Tibetan. This probably comes from the native people who had once migrated, probably from Asia, and eventually came to the Americas. Um, then, of course, Northeast European, Native American. Um, but yeah, no, as far as the North African, it's interesting because it can be anywhere. This website says like 3 to 4%, but Genoplot says like around 9 to 10%. So it's interesting to think about. It could be just pulling out the Berber or Amazigh connection out of the European connection potentially. Um, Let me look here. Okay, so we're done with that part. And actually, before we continue, I'm going to show you guys Genoplot to give you guys a better example of groups of people that I'm also connected to. I'm going to see if I can maybe sign out and sign in. Let me see here. Let's see if I have an account that has 100 credits. I should. Okay. Okay, there we go. Uh, did I? It didn't. I don't think it saved my results. Okay, let me just do test. Just to show you guys quickly. Gonna do something here. Let me look here. Um, I'll just see if I can get it to work. Yeah, this is just another website I've used, and it kind of gives a bit more of a detailed kind of look in my DNA because I know um, the True Ancestry gives a better example of ancient populations, but this gives a better example of modern populations. So what we're going to do is now we're going to go to here and we're going to put this in. We're going to put this one, and then it will essentially kind of show a rainbow of ancestry. And so here I have ancestry that is, no surprise, Croatian Northwest because it matches with the Aurelian and the Pannonian ancient ancestry I got. But I also have Scottish North Highlands, and it's going to make sense later on because I am also connected to um, people or have ancestry from my dad's side that goes back to the Scottish Highlanders. I'm also going to plug in another test because it will also show some of the Irish I got. Here it says Spanish Castile and Leon, no surprise there. Cartini, so it kind of goes back and forth. Sometimes it will say I'm related to people from the Amazons, and sometimes it will say that I'm related to the Quechua people. So some of the tests can be a little bit finicky, but it's interesting nonetheless. And I think, but there was probably a strong connection between the Quechua and the Amazonians because some of them may have mixed as well. Then we have the Berber Morocco, Sheila Tiznit. This was a group of people, and I'll pull it up because it's interesting because in the ancient ancestry, I had some ancestry that spoke about the people from North Africa. Let me look here. So these would have been a Berber group inhabiting Anti-Atlas, Morocco, coastal regions. Let me look. Mm, I'm looking here. Beautiful woman, actually. Um, yeah, they have very elaborate jewelry. That's one thing I've noticed about some of the Berber or Amazigh people. And you can see they have quite a diversity of people. Some that have a variety of looks because there was a mixing of the groups that came in. Um, oh, I have to see. Yeah, there's always kind of an argument sometimes. Like I saw this video, there were arguments if the Berbers looked more like people from sub-Saharan Africa with very dark skin, if they were originally kind of paler in complexion. It might have been a mix of both, really. That's probably what I'm thinking about. Um, the Berbers of Morocco are an indigenous civilization of North and Sub-Saharan Africa, which existence dates back more than 20,000 years. Called the Amazigh Free Men. Okay, that's very powerful, Free Men, because when I think about the message of my mother Morgan, you bow to no one. That's exactly what it is. Or even to be frank, to be a free man. That's another connection there. Um, let's look here. Descendants of pre-Arab inhabitants. But I wonder. Sheila people. says they were a Berber subgroup. It could have been a mixture of both North Africa and some Arab or European ancestry. Um, yeah. It's kind of difficult to say, but probably definitely a mix, I'd imagine. Again, beautiful people though, and I don't think there should ever be, um, kind of a replacement of the necessarily of the original Berber people in the sense that understanding their history is also kind of even understanding part of our history, back to ancient Egypt, because it's all kind of interconnected. Um, okay, so other than that, I also had Old de France Nord, and I know my dad, he tends to talk about the Belgium or the people from Flanders, and so could have a connection from his side potentially. I also have Italian Tuscany, and this would be in closer to northern Italy or North Italy, North Central, I would say. Luni Guinean. Oh, interesting. Then we have Darginian. So the Darginian people were people who live in, they say the Northeast Caucasus, but yeah. So there's that some of that Caucasian that my dad's wife Jewel likes to mention. And this is probably where maybe part of the ancestry where maybe the sons of Odin came from, may have been from this area. Um, maybe they could have also come from might have been a connection with the with the Huns as well. Let's see, Mountain Dew, Ciscaucus. This would also be around the Caucasus Mountains. The Kula were, let me look here. Indigenous people of Western Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. I wonder if they were also related to the Quechua. Yes. Yeah, there's a connection there. Then there's the Cat people of people who had originally come from Siberia. And when I think about Cat, I also think about Celts, and there might have been a shared ancestry there. Then we have Maori. These are people from uh, what is now known as the area of Russia. Let me look here. Finnic people. Okay. Interesting. And they look kind of like this. It's kind of neat. The Gulak people. Gulak people were Caspian Sea, northern part of Iran. Beautiful people. Saudi. That could have been some of the Arab ancestry I had. Bosnak, and then the Canary Islands. That's where my grandfather's ancestors from my mother's side came from, I believe. Bosniaks, South Slavic. Okay. I don't know why it showed that part. Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can wrap this up here in the next 20 to 30 minutes. I think we're getting close to the end though. I just kind of wanted to share some of that. Let's do some genetic. This is going to kind of say the people I'm the most closely related to, um, kind of through genetic distance, which means essentially the smaller the numbers, the closer it is. I'm actually going to go and get some water. I'll be back. Back. So here is an example of some of the mixed ancestry. It seems like it's trying to connect me to people that originally were from the Celtic Isles to a number of Native American tribes, which um, is not surprising. It's the two main groups, Quechua, Peru, so there's the Quechua. There's also one test that also shows Cree as well. And then here, the rainbow kind of displays itself in a more in a bigger fashion, which I think is kind of neat. Um, yeah, so I think there's a bit of a better test that I did. Kind of when, yeah, I'm gonna pull out the 23andMe test because that kind of gives a better example of all the different groups. Um, yeah, let me do that. So here it says there's British and Irish, which no surprise there because there's the connection to Scotland and Ireland. Scandinavia makes sense. French and German, a Native American, Greek and Balkan, North African, Iranian, Caucasian, and Mesopotamian, Finnish, North Indian, and Pakistani. So I know there have been some people that sometimes have mentioned you look like you might have a bit of maybe Indian from India in you. So there's part of that. Small percentage, but nonetheless. Then there's Sudanese, and then Ghanaian, Liberian, and Sierra Leonean. So that could have been some of the sub-Saharan African ancestry. I think Sudan is still kind of is part of North Africa, I believe. Okay, so here it says, oops, my bad. I'm connected to the Spanish and Portuguese, French and German, Greek and Balkan, British and Irish, Scandinavian, and Anatolian, Finnish, Mongolian, um, Japanese. Yeah, I know my dad's wife sometimes says my dad does look a little bit Asian sometimes, so there might be some of that there. And then here it kind of breaks it down further, as the rainbow kind of. Some say, water. Some might use the word watered down, but it really is the rainbow. So here it says Native American, Spanish, Macedonian, French and German, British and Irish, um, Scandinavian, Italian. Then here it's telling me groups that I'm most connected to. Number one is Anatolian, which makes sense because I have a large percentage of ancestry from the Aurelians and the groups of people around Greece. And then there's French and German, Greek and Balkan, Spanish and Portuguese, British and Irish. And you notice how close the Spanish and the British and the Irish, they're all really close to each other. Um, Scandinavian, Ashkenazi Jew, and no surprise there because they say a lot of the Ashkenazi Jews may have actually again been European in origin as well, or mixed with Europeans over time. Macedonian, Eastern Europe, European, and Italy, Finnish, Mesopotamian, Cypriot, Levantine, Northern India, and Pakistan. They say that I've watched this video and they said that the tribe of Danu, or the tribe of the two of the Danan, there might have been a tribe of called the tribe of Danu that left India long ago. And so, aside from leaving from Greece or from Asia Minor, there could have been a connection back to India as well. And notice how close northern India and Pakistan are to Egyptian, very close to each other. So, because I think I did a watched a video essentially saying that there might have been Indians who actually migrated to ancient Egypt, actually. There's North Africa, Arab, Northeast Indian, Ethiopian, and Anturian. Makes sense because a lot of people from who went to Egypt were also some of them came from Ethiopia. Then there's Manchurian and Mongolian, and that could come from either from the native ancestry I have, or it could come from the ancestry of the Huns that came to Germany and parts of Scandinavia. Somali, they might be somewhat connected to Ethiopians. I'd have to check, but there's Filipino and Austronesian, probably also from the native side. Siberian, in Indonesian, Kamar Thai, and Manama, Native American. And notice how close Native American is to Japanese, because it could come from the not only the Siberians and some of the ancient Chinese, but also some of the Eniwa people who lived in ancient Japan as well. Then there's Vietnamese, and I'm sure my dad's wife Julie would love to see that because I know I had a Vietnamese friend that was like, "That's impossible. You can't be related to us. You know, you're European." But no, I have some of that native ancestry that came from some of the natives who had originally had come from that part of the world. Chinese, Korean, then Chinese die. Then there's Sudanese, Southern East Africa, Ghanaian, Liberian, Sierra Leone, Angolian, Nigerian, Milesian, and African hunter-gatherer. So we went from Anatolian to Africa hunter-gatherer. There it is. It's really the rainbow. And I'm gonna do one more test just to show you guys some of the I think I had gotten some Ulster Irish in one test. Let me check. Yeah, like I really like kind of doing this because like I really like kind of sharing the rainbow like with you guys. It's just kind of like the whole history and kind of the coming together. And of course, sometimes in history there are moments of strife, but there's also moments of coming together. And we are coming to those moments of the rainbow coming indeed. So. Hopefully, you guys have been able to follow along with this. I know at the beginning I shared a lot about histories from a lot of different ancient civilizations, but I thought it was kind of neat indeed. Did Let's see if I can get this to work. Oh, by the way, before I end this, I'm gonna just show, just because my uncle probably would like to see this. It's a quick migrational kind of dot map that kind of looks a bit like a comet. I'm sure he and others might like to see that. Let me. Oops, my bad. Oh, even here, it kind of consolidates ancestry into different facets. But I wanted to do the Roma guy because it really kind of breaks down into some other groups that I think is pretty neat. So here you have Scottish Northeast actually, which is sometimes it changes around. I don't know why, but anyways, sometimes it will give me like Irish. It kind of depends though. But here it says Bolivian Pondo, Catalonia, Mountain Jew, Ukrainian, Croatian, Croat. Um, yeah, it's really interesting to kind of see. Definitely Scottish, but also ethnically Irish, probably because um, a lot of the clans that I'm related to, like Clan Doniol, Clan Gillen, um, Clan O'Boyle, it goes back to Donegal, Ireland. Let's see here. Yeah. Um, yeah, no, let me try to run it again. Let me, oops, my bad. Sometimes it will give me different results. Oops, my bad. Oh, this time it gave me something completely different. Yeah, it might not be a foolproof test, but I feel like it's somewhat valid at least. I think the best test I've done so far probably might be the 23 and me, and this is where I'm gonna see if I can draw the little map. Um, yeah, but I'm gonna, yeah, see here it's giving me more British and Irish. It's probably combining the Scandinavian is probably what it's doing. I'd say the K13 is probably more valid if you want to separate the British and Irish and the Scandinavian. Yeah, so this would be the British and Irish part, this would be the Scandinavian part, French and German part, native part, Greek and Balkan, North African. Yeah. Let me see if I can. There should be a option for PC plot. Yeah, so this would be the dots that my uncle is really into. So I would be here, and then these are the groups I'm most closely related to. A lot of Anatolian, but also British and Irish. Um, and it should give me the exact number. Here it doesn't, but it's as you saw before, it was very close genetic wise. So basically, I'd say, oops, my bad. I'd say this cluster here are groups I'm most related to. So Scandinavian, British, Irish, French, and German, Eastern European, Anatolian, Iranian, Spanish, and there's also some Jewish ancestry. And then as you get further out, then you get to northern India, Central Asia. Let me look. And then there's Native American ancestry here with Chinese, Siberian, Filipino, Egyptian, North African, Ethiopian. Yeah, so it's really kind of like a comet in a way. But yeah, I'd say like this, like if you really zoom out far, I'd say this group right here would be the group I'm most related to. So mainly European with some distant ancestry from Egypt and, or relatively slightly distant ancestry from Northeast India and in Egypt as well as, and then further on native and more so sub-Saharan African. The further you go, or parts of Horn of Africa. Uh, yeah, so that is, I think we're done with Genoplot. I think I just kind of wanted to wrap that up with that part of the video. But yeah, let's continue. So now we're gonna go to haplogroups, and this is just kind of showing the ancestry, like some royalty from both my mom's paternal line and my dad's paternal line. You can see there's a lot of ancestry in a lot of ancestry going back going back to Scotland, going back to Ireland even. Yeah, Clan Jordan, Clan Ryan, and Clan Dower. This is all from my dad's side. Yeah, YDNA is the father's line. Clan Moray, Clan Leon, Clan Hay, Clan Sutherland, Clan let's see other Clan Armstrong, Clan Moray, Clan Boyle, Clan Weir, House of Audley, so this is further into England. House Seymour, closer to Cornwall. Even some English royalty. And this is all from my dad's paternal line. Norwegian royalty, Danish royalty, Swedish royalty. I want to make sure, is this just all from, okay, I'm gonna actually break it down. So I'm gonna show matches. Okay, I think it does like I think there's like an option for the mother's line and then the father's line, I think, or the maternal and maternal. Let me look here. Getting a little bit tired here, but we're almost done with the video, so it's almost like finishing a marathon. Um, okay, okay. Okay, so here's the maternal line. This is more so in the south. So okay, Clan Armstrong. Okay, so maybe these were clans that had migrated to Spain, potentially. Interesting. It may very well be. It seems like more to the north. Oh no, here it has, yeah, Clan Donahane. It might even just be like a shared ancestry or like a migration over time. Um, but anyways, speaking of the mother and father line, we will start with my mum or my mother's line, because, think ladies first. So for my mom's line, it would have been a lot of ancestry from a lot of royalty in some in Germany, Scandinavia, French, Austrian, Spanish, Belgian, Sardinian, Bohemian, Luxembourg, even a bit from maybe what is now Ukraine and Russia. Italy, again, the Saxons, I've been healing with them, but that's just part of what we do. Bringing the rainbow, Greek royalty, Polish royalty, Swedish royalty, English, Norwegian, Bavarian, some Scottish. So even from my mom's side, there's some Scottish there. But a lot of German and Scandinavian predominantly. Maybe that's where I get a lot of my Scandinavian ancestry, because I thought a lot of times it was from my dad's side, but some of it could come from my mom as well. Um, so from my dad's side, we have a lot of Scottish clans, Clan Gillen, Clan Doniol, and Clan Boyle. These were related to initially to the Irish of Tyrconnell, of Donegal, Northwest Ireland, of the to the O'Donnells really, or to the Miletians. It goes back to that history, and really back to the Celtic Aurelians and really the ancient Greeks and a lot of that history. So yeah, Clan Gillen, Clan Doniol, Clan Weir, Clan Hunter, Clan Crawford, Clan Cheyenne, Clan Armstrong, House of de Leopold, House of Lepet de Melde. These were some houses in, I believe, France, Germany, and Poland, actually. Or, yeah, so, yeah, Polish. Clan Blair, Clan Mercer, Clan Cuchulainn, Clan Kirkpatrick, House Seymour, Clan Hay, Austrian royalty, House of Odili, Clan Murray, Clan Ryan, House of Grey, Clan Cathcart, Clan Sutherland, Clan Dwyer, Clan Erskine, Clan Strange, Clan Fitzrudolph, English royalty, Scottish royalty, Clan Paisley, Bulgarian royalty, Portuguese, Clan McThomas, Clan Jordan, Clan Grant, Clan McCauley, Clan Weishart, Clan MacArthur, Clan Maxwell, Clan Eustace, Clan Russell, Clan Skin, Clan Pringle, Clan McCullum, Clan Macmillan, Clan Gordon, Clan Gunn, and I think these were from the Scandinavian or Norwegian Vikings that had settled in this area. This probably also ties into my dad's name and his dad's name, Sigifredo, which goes back to the Volsunga saga as well. Then there's Clan Trotter, Clan MacPhail. You can tell I'm getting a wee bit tired here, but we're almost done. We're almost done with the marathon, as they say. Clan Abernathy, House of Bertran, Clan Lepore, Clan Douglas, Grand Princes of Kiev, so that'd be Ukraine. You know, they say Slava Ukraina, Norwegian royalty, and Danish royalty. So predominantly on on my mother's maternal line, it's predominantly a lot of German, a lot of Scandinavian, some English, Greek, and Italian. And then for my father's paternal line, it's a lot of Scottish, a lot of, and then some Scandinavian, but predominantly a lot of really Gallic and Celtic kind of roots as well. Um, and then this is just the different R groups. R1B is predominantly seen with Celts and um, with the Celtic people, and it goes back to the Albanians and the Aurelians. Really, it's that shared ancestry. And then this has shared ancestry with Scandinavia, and then some of this I think is native ancestry here, and then part of this could be parts of North Africa. And then I think from my mother's side, it was a lot of ancestry from some parts were from Northern Europe, other parts were from I think Greece and Italy. But very interesting. It all kind of connects. You can see there's quite a few more haplogroups for my mom's side versus my dad's. Yeah, my dad has like I think 11, and then my mom is more like, at least this is from my mom's maternal line, to be like 19. Yeah. And then here we have, at least from my dad's paternal line, I was connected to Clan Boyle. This is where I speak about the O'Boyles that really come from Donegal. And it seems like Clan Boyle was also a lowland clan, but the name Boyle, that word, comes from Irish and Scottish, Gaelic or Norman origin. Our last name in the family from my dad's side, Vivas, is of Norman origin, so that makes sense, northwest of Ireland. So this probably has its roots really from the people from Donegal, probably mixing with the Normans. Yeah, from Tyrconnell. Yeah, Tyrconnell. And we also have Ancestry, here it is, Tyrconnell with Clan Gillen. And here's an ancestor, Gilbert, or ancestral seat connected to Gilbert MacGillen. McGillen. Yeah, McGillane, actually. Yeah, this would have been from the 1300s. Which is interesting because in my past life, uh, I felt like I lived in Ireland around the 1300s. So this is very, there is that connection there. So yeah, that would be from my father's side, or father's paternal side, yeah. And then here's some of the castles, the arrows of Glasgow, the Kelburn Castle, and then here been Tyrconnell, yeah. Um, DNA Spotlight. This just kind of connects me to certain famous or well-known people in history. Jean-Paul Marat, Revolutionary France, connects with my mother's side. My dad's side, it's not so sure on. The Swiss mummy of Anne-Catherine Bischoff. This is from my mum's side. And then the Princess of Hasselben, very high percentage from my mum's side again. Carolingian Empire comes from both my mum and dad's side. No surprise there. Um, this has a lot of connection to kind of France, Germany, um, you know, and other areas. And then Imperial Roman Villa come from my mum's side. And then an Iceman from my mum and my dad's side. Then we go to DNA travel. And then it just tells me where my ancestors once lived from my mum and dad's side. Here would have been where my dad's ancestors from his line came from the male line. So my father's father and his father's father and the fathers before then. Kilburn Castle, also from my dad's side. And then it's kind of a shame it doesn't also explore the like my dad's maternal line or my mother's paternal line, but maybe they'll explore into that technology in the future. And then here, unfortunately, it doesn't tell me which side of the family this comes from. I'd imagine it's probably from my mother, because I feel like a lot of my Italian ancestry comes from my mom's side. And these are, I think, Monterra Tondo. Yeah, Tondo. That comes from, or that's in, I think, northern Italy. I'd have to check though to make sure. I'd have to check. I don't know where it is. Um, okay, no, actually, it's closer to Rome. Yeah, and I actually went to Rome this lifetime. It was actually, yeah, they have great food there. So it's part of how you heal with the Romans is with great food. Um, yeah, so a lot of ancestry around Rome. Let me look here. Turin, Italy. Where is that? Okay, so Turin would be more in the northwestern part. So I have some northern Italian as well. And then Hungary, and I'm not sure if it comes from my dad or mom's side. It could come from both. This would have been more Virginian, Nider Stadtschingen. Probably butchered that. I think this might have been from. Again, it's not going to show ancestry from the maternal line or the or my dad's paternal line or my mom's paternal line, unfortunately. But at least we can get ancestry from my maternal and paternal line. Where is this? I don't, let me see if I can even, where is this? Let me see how far is it from Cleves. I know my dad always mentions that. So this would have been southwestern Germany. Okay, so it would have been, yeah. Then there's another place in Germany, Alt-Enden. Where's that at? I use Cleves as kind of like a benchmark. Um, where is this? Oh, oh well, there's oh, it's a town. Oh, it's near Cologne. It's only an hour and 38 minutes. Okay, so could have been I don't know how far is this from the Teutoburg Forest with where the Cherusci fought the Romans long ago. Oh, 2 hours and 37 minutes southwest. Okay. That could be from my dad's side potentially. I'm not 100% sure, honestly. But yeah, I'd have to upgrade to Odyssey for it to let me know, unfortunately. At least it lets me know the ancestry with from Ireland and Scotland. Um, and then here, Delphi, Greece, that's probably most likely from my mom's side. I feel like the more the Mediterranean ancestry I feel like I got from my mom. And I love my mom indeed. Um, yeah, so I think other than that, we're just gonna end the video on just some kind of fun things like well, we've already ended on fun things, but this is just kind of saying what my ancestors probably subsisted off of, which is mainly bread, wheat, porridge, beer, milk, lamb, salmon, boar, barley, oats, trout, eggs, cheese, olives, beef. Just some really neat stuff. And I think that's it. I don't know. Oh, I think there's timeline. Oh, my uncle he's really into timelines. Um, yeah, so this would be kind of like a detailed timeline from Bavaria, 2250 BC to Serbia, and then it goes to Iberia, Montenegro, Aurelians, Dalmatians, Hungary, Bohemian, Nordhaus, Slovakia, Hungary, Hispania. There's Cherusci right there. Thuringi, Byzantine, Ostrogoth. Um, I'm gonna see if I can. Let me get back. I'm gonna just write another timestamp. Uh, let's see. All right. It just kind of breaks the video if people want to see different parts of it. Okay, continuing. Medieval Piedmont, Lombard, Grave, Gallo-Roman, medieval Lenchem, Germany, Central Roman, Hungary, Andalusia, Spanish, Cordoba, Portuguese, Iberian Tifif, Valencia, German, Marseille's plague victim, and then Anne Catherine of Switzerland from my mom's side. Okay, so this is kind of cool. So this kind of talks about the ancestry from, from a certain time period to now, which is kind of neat. Yeah, and it's kind of neat to see the images. So these would have been the Aurelians and the Dalmatians, or the people from Hungary and Germany. Oh, I think there's a better test. Well, I don't know if I can if it'll let me do this, but let me look. Oh, this is just a demo video. Um, yeah, so let's continue with this. So it just tells the different ages, Iron Age. And I'll do like a quick survey of the timeline um back in the other tab I was looking at. So this is the Thuringi, um, probably some of the Romans. Let me look here. Oops, my bad. Let me cancel that. 900 AD, so this would have been the time in uh, the Dark Ages. Yeah, so that would have been one example. And then this is just kind of like a timeline of all the different groups of people that I have been connected to for time immemorial. And I think the larger the circles, the more shared ancestry I have. Oh yeah, speaking of which, I'm gonna do something real quick because I forgot to do this. So there's this deep dive full breakdown, and I'm gonna, give me a sec. Look. So yeah, so here it says deep dive full breakdown is more so, let me see here. See if I can get this to work. Sometimes they'll give me a wee bit of trouble. Um, yeah, this has been a long video, but I think it's been worth doing, just kind of to share. Let me see if I can get it to work. Yeah, so it says you share DNA segments with your deep dive matches. This chart represents the unity of all your deep dive matches weight per total synapse you share, their own individual classification. So I think this is more so kind of groups of people that I have more so defined shared synapses with, or definitely chromosomes as well. Uh, so my highest group would be the Aurelians, no surprise there. Scordisci, no surprise that they'd be the Celts and the Aurelians coming together. A high percentage of Roman, probably mainly coming from my mom's side. Pannonian, Gallo-Roman, and then we have Parthenon Empire and Sasanian as well. And then this just kind of talks about the timeline of Pannonia, Aurelians, Scordisci, Roman, a lot of Roman. And then as far as the ancient sample breakdown, I'm going to do this real quick. Um, Let me look here. Gonna Here we have um, so here it started off as Pannonians, the Thracians, which were a group of people that also inhabited the surrounding areas of Greece to the north, I believe. I'd have to check again, but we're getting towards the end of the video. We also have the Proto-Gal, um, Acanian Gal, yeah. And then here we have civilization heat map. It just kind of shares like, kind of some of the synapses or just kind of people more closely related to. I think for me, I got a lot of people from Croatia, Hungary, um, Slovenia, Montenegro, Serbia, Hungary again, Scordisci, Gallo-Roman, Morton Sekiru, uh, Parthian, Iran, Austria, North Macedonia, Aurelia, Spain, Croat. That's probably why I got a lot of high percentage of Croatian ancestry because there may have been Croatians who actually migrated to Spain and then but then they were but back then they were probably called again the Aurelians and the Pannonians, and they mixed with the Celts, and that's how it happened. Um, it's really I think we are just about done here though. I think that's all I really wanted to cover. Yeah, so let me know what you guys think. I know this was a long video, but I really wanted to do it because I just thought it was really interesting to share. And let me know what you guys think, and let me know if it helped, educate or kind of helped bring some education or kind of illumination to you guys of the rainbow. Anyways, guys, I'll be heading out for now. I probably should, I'll take a shower and then, or take a bath and get some shut-eye. So, hope you all take care. Slonga full. Bye for now.